terms of pure value for your money, the phone I'm about to show you is one of the best out there. It's just crazy, you guys. This is the Samsung Galaxy A51, and this phone is jam-packed with a ton of modern features, and it costs like a quarter of the price of something like an S20. Because this is a budget slash mid-range kind of phone, Samsung has dialed it back on design a little bit here. The prism black color looks pretty awesome, but this isn't glass. It's what Samsung calls glastic, which is pretty much just straight plastic. It doesn't feel all that great to the touch, but if you use a case like I do all the time, you'll never feel it anyway. Plus, it makes the phone super light at 172 grams. This clear case actually comes inside the box along with a pre-installed screen protector, a 15-watt fast charger, a USB-C cable, and a pair of cheap headphones for the 3.5mm headphone jack that is still included on this phone. Thumbs up for that, Samsung. Now if we can just convince you to put them back on your flagship phones. Anyway, when we come around to the front of the phone, this is my favorite part. The glass is nice and flat with slim bezels, just how I like it, no waterfall display to be found here, and the screen is a huge 6.5-inch Full HD Plus AMOLED display. Samsung is really flexing their display tech here, even though it is much more of a budget phone. It adopts the Samsung Infinity O display that's become standard among their flagships, and the selfie camera hole is really tiny and unobtrusive. Watching videos on YouTube and Netflix is nearly perfect, much better than my sub 1080p notched iPhone 11 display. The display on the A51 is nice and sharp with very little discoloration when you're viewing it off axis, and we even get an under the display fingerprint reader here on a sub $400 phone. Now, as cool as that is, I gotta keep it real for a second here. This isn't my favorite method for unlocking my phone. Yes, it is design friendly because it's hidden behind the glass, but it is quite a bit slower than something like Face ID on the iPhone or even a modern fingerprint reader that isn't hidden behind the glass. And yeah, if you're wondering, this is the S20's wallpaper and it looks great on this phone. Speaking of slow, we come to the other negative about this phone. The internal specs aren't exactly industry leading, nor should you expect them to be. This is more of a budget phone after all. Inside we've got an Exynos 9611 chip with either 4 or 6 gigs of RAM depending on the model you buy. I have the model with 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage and an expandable micro SD card slot. The 4 gigs of RAM isn't too big of a deal, but the fairly low-end Exynos chip can be. For the most part, One UI 2.0 runs fairly well with only a few hiccups here and there, but if you're used to a flagship performance, you might be a little bit disappointed. In Geekbench 5, we ran a single core score of 346 and a multi-core score of 1286. Just for reference, that's a bit slower than the Samsung Galaxy S8, a flagship phone that was released nearly 3 years ago. Back to the good stuff before I lose you guys. This phone has a fairly decent 4000 milliamp hour battery that charges quickly with the included 15-watt fast charger and USB-C port. I can easily get a full day out of this phone and part of another one if I really needed to, but we'll have to see how that holds up over time. I'll be doing a follow-up to this sort of first impressions video with a much more in-depth testing video in the coming weeks, so be sure to subscribe to be notified when that video launches. Now, the cameras. There are 4 of them in total, as well as a depth sensor. There's a 48 megapixel standard lens, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 5 megapixel macro, and a 32 megapixel selfie camera. 1 on the front, 3 on the back, as well as that depth sensor. Overall, the cameras were a little bit better than I expected. They're definitely not Samsung or Apple flagship tier, but I can't really complain about them either. The cameras do well in well-lit scenarios and they start to fall apart in low light. Surprise, surprise. All 4 cameras can also shoot 4K video too, although it's limited to 30 FPS and there's no image stabilization when shooting in 4K. If you're interested in seeing a more in-depth camera test, let me know in a comment down below. A couple of rapid fire notes here and then I'll throw my final first impressions straight at you guys. The phone isn't IP water or dust rated, so be careful around water, and there's no stereo speakers on this phone, just a really loud bottom firing speaker. Also, this phone is available in the UK, Canada, India, and a few other markets right now, but according to a bunch of articles, it should be coming to the US very soon, just like the A50 did last year. I'm really impressed with this phone so far. I haven't had it a long time, and I'll definitely be doing more videos on it as I do my testing, but as it stands, this phone is an incredible value for the price you pay. I paid almost 400 Canadian for my A51, which comes out to be around 300 USD. And for a phone with a great display, decent cameras, and a bunch of modern conveniences, I love it so far. If you're interested in checking it out further, I'll leave a link down in the description down below. And if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to support my content. And as always, have a great day. Ugh, I almost hit my head on the light there. I left this part in at the end because I figured I'd owe you guys a little bit of an apology for not being able to post any S20 content over the past week or so. Trust me, I would have loved to, but being a small YouTuber makes it really hard to get a hand on one of those devices from Samsung before its official launch on March 6th. Then again, I'm sure you guys are probably sick of all the S20 videos that have flooded YouTube in the last little while, but regardless, rest assured I will be reviewing the Samsung S20. I just have to wait to buy the phone on March 6th like everybody else. Anyway, that's it for me. Mark out.